about 45 million pounds of chips in a quarter. That equates to about 200 million pounds of potatoes, which is quite a few. What's interesting with M&T is they're a small town bank, and as we've grown, they've also grown with us. They've got the resources that you would need in order to go big, but they also have that friendly local community feel so that it makes it seem easier than it probably is.
Hello, and welcome to Candidates Up Front. This program allows voters to get information on the candidates directly from the candidates, and this is for the May 18th municipal primary election. It is a joint project of the League of Women Voters of Berks County and Berks Community Television. Both are nonpartisan organizations. We never support nor do we oppose political parties nor candidates. And today, our featured race is Judge of the Magisterial District Court. The Magisterial District Judge generally handles traffic violations, landlord-tenant matters, and civil actions where the amount claimed is less than $12,000. The judge also presides at arraignments, sets bail, issues warrants, and performs duties of a similar nature. The current salary is $93,338, and magisterial district judges serve a 6-year term. There are 3 candidates running, but only 2 are running in both parties. That means Democrats will select one of 3 candidates, Republicans will select one of 2 candidates. The candidates, in alphabetical order, are Priscilla Campos, Ryan Cooper, and Peter Rosario. All will be asked the same questions in the same order with the same general time limit. And each candidate's views are their own, not necessarily those of BCTV or the League of Women Voters. Today, our candidate is Peter Rosario. Welcome, Mr. Rosario.
Welcome. Thank you for having me today.
Would you start us off by telling us why you decided to run for district judge and what educational background do you bring to the position, or experience background, either one?
Yeah. So I decided to run for judge when in 2015, I believe it was 2015, I was asked to be an interpreter at a local MDJ court. And while being the interpreter for the court, I noticed that a judge, while being impartial, can also help the community in ways I never imagined. During this time, I saw that the judge, while finding the defendant guilty, was still able to assist the defendant by giving them the option for payment plans. There was another time where he gave out community service. These are things that I never imagined that a judge could do, as in trying to help out someone in the community while being impartial in the same way. I didn't think that was possible. Shortly after that, I went to school and I passed, and since then have been certified 3 times to be a magisterial district judge. My current profession, I'm an inspector, so I do go to court sometimes when I give owners citations for certain violations. But as an inspector, our main job is to make sure that the violations are completed. So I do have communications with the owners on a regular basis just to make sure that if the violations have been completed, I could go to the court and withdraw those violations. I think that as a judge is something that we can do also. If we make sure that the defendant is accountable of their actions, we could work with them and not necessarily punish them, but with communication, work together and make the case as positive as possible for all parties.
Okay, well, our second question you've kind of answered, but we'll let you go over it again. Is there a person or a moment in your life or a special experience that influenced you to run for district judge?
Yes. That was the current judge. It was then Judge Wally Scott. Um, I was after seeing his work on the bench, it inspired me. Um, Seeing that type of compassion for someone, and it was a couple more than just those two that I mentioned, and a lot of people from the community could vouch for that. While he was a judge, he was loved by many of the constituents in the city, and I saw that firsthand why. Um, when it comes to issues like truancy, giving community service, we see that parents are given fines, and sometimes the fines might become overbearing. There was an issue where a mother of 7 went to jail and they found her dead in prison for a truancy case. I think that's unfair and unjust. I don't think you should be sent to jail for truancy. I would like to do what Judge Wally Scott did. If the child, the student is 15 years or older, give them community service. That way they could give back to community at the same time, hopefully learn something in the process. I feel like we should make or have the student be a little more accountable for their actions, not have to penalize the parents. So this is something that I saw and inspired me from the Honorable Judge Wally Scott at the time. And it led me to the dream that I have now.
Thank you. What personal qualities do you have that would help you be an effective district judge?
I am compassionate. I am open-minded. I'm good at listening. Communication is very important. You have to be able, as a judge, you're impartial, but it's our job to listen to all the evidence that's presented in front of us. In doing so, you have to listen. You have to be aware. We are no one's lawyers, but we are there to take this evidence and make an independent judgment based on what we hear. I'm also bilingual. That helps because when you have someone in this example, Spanish, I know Spanish. So if someone speaks Spanish, I advise that they have an interpreter. I always advise that. But it helps because I would understand everything that comes out, or every word that comes out their mouth in their specific tone. I will understand their passion, their demeanor, and I will hear the case, the offense, specifically through their mouth. The interpreter would just be there to assist, but the case will come through them.
Please tell us about the area this district serves. And by that I mean I could list the precincts and wards that are covered, but nobody identifies an area by precincts and wards. So just tell us basically where it is, where the voters are that you want to reach.
Yes, so the areas are Southwest Reading. So from Penn Street all the way south across the Lancaster Bridge area, and for most of 6th Street down towards West Reading. Spruce Street is where it cuts down from 6th to 5th and everything across. And then everything in Millmont, Kenhurst Boulevard, Wild Missing Park, and the Oak Brook areas. If you have voted in the past in Noble, in the Calvary Church, in the Greek Church, in the Alvitz Boys and Girls Church, in Alvernia, in Southwest Middle School, Kennedy Towers, I believe that's all of them. Those would be the areas where you would reside in this specific judicial district.
Now, tell the voters why this position should matter to them. What is the importance of this position? Why should they come out to vote for judge?
Well, first, it's definitely important because this is your local elections. Your local elections is every other year after the president and the governor elections. These are the elections that specifically affect your neighborhood because it's for your city council, it's for your Reading School Board, and in our case, your judicial judges, all judges. There's Court of Common Pleas also that's going up. We deal with almost always the first cases that a defendant will come before a judge. So if you get a traffic ticket, if you get a truancy fine, if you have civil cases that you have a problem with a neighbor or something that there's damages $12,000 or less, we see all those. So we are the first line of judges, you could say, that a defendant will come before. And it is important that the people know about what this, MDJs do and how it could affect them. This is something that I try to teach as many people as possible exactly what we do and what we can't do. We don't make laws, we enforce them, but there's ways that we can enforce them being impartial, but still get justice done. We work for the community. It's our job to maintain community safe. And that's what I intend to do, make sure the community is safe. But I also do not think that it's right to put burdens on innocent people when there's different ways that we could go about it.
Now, as a district judge, you'll be dealing with matters of civil law and criminal law. So would you explain the difference between those to our voters and maybe give a couple examples of each? And explain what the DJ's role is in handling each, because there are different responsibilities you have in both cases.
Yes. So when it comes to civil, we'll deal with cases, like I said prior, of $12,000 or less, which they could waive any excess. So if it's, let's say, $15,000, they could waive the extra $3,000 in order to see a MDJ. And in these cases, the defendant and the prosecutor, well, both sides will have to show their evidence to try to persuade the judge one way or the other up to 51%. So it could be just barely tipping the scale for these cases. It is the party's job to do that towards us, and we make the independent judgment towards that. We do truancy cases. We do traffic, non-traffic. These are the civil ones. When it comes to criminal, we do arraignment. So if someone gets arrested or gets summoned for whatever reason, they come to our court and we set up bail. That's very important because we use 5 different types of bails. One being monetary. One of my big things that I'm saying is we're seeing across the country, people are being sent to jail for monetary bail. Monetary bail is the most strictest bail of the 5. And I feel that depending on the case, there's different types of bails we could use. We could have conditional bail, which we could say, defendant, I see that you haven't committed a violent crime. You have a clean history. This could have been a mistake. I'm asking you to do 40 hours of community service. If the defendant decides to do the 40 hours of community service, great. We'll see you the next day, the next time you have to come to the hearing to hear the trial. This is all preliminary arraignment. But if you do not, then you would be forced to pay the mandatory bail, the cash amount. This is helpful because this gives accountability towards the defendant. The next time they go to court, we would see as a judge their previous bail. And if we see that they had a certain condition which they complied, that would assist them. It wouldn't just be that they paid a certain amount of money just to get out of jail and not have to go to jail.
The next question was on that, or actually it's 2 questions ahead. First, let's say district judges decide whether there's sufficient evidence for a criminal case to go to trial. What will you consider when making this decision?
Well, what we usually consider is we consider all the evidence that's presented in front of us by the law enforcement officers. Sometimes they may use COs, informants. If it's civil, it's based on whatever either the party present to us. So it could be a contract. It kind of goes case by case, but we use the information that we know as judges to make the decision based off of that. And there's something that we call the 4 corners rule. So when it comes to warrants, we only take into account anything that's within the page, so within the four corners of the page. The same could be said when it comes to certain issues or court things. We only take whatever is presented in front of us. We cannot make judgments past that, and we cannot assume anything either. That's how it should be done because we are not supposed to be biased and impartial.
Then we're coming back to that bail issue you were talking about.
Yes.
What criteria do you use to decide whether bail is needed, and what criteria do you use to determine how high the bail should be?
Great question. So how high it is would depend on the offense. If it's a violent offense, it would, I believe, would merit a monetary bail. We're here to protect the community. We want to make sure that violent people would have to post a monetary bail, and if they can't afford it, it happens. But when it comes to other types of bills, if we have certain offenses from a defendant that comes in front of us, we as judges have a bail criteria that we have to go by. All judges in our level have to do this. This includes, but it's not limited to, the defendant's age, how long they've been, their residential history, employment history, how are they with the community, prior convictions, prior bail convictions, risk of flight. And after we ask all these questions, there's a few more, and we get this information from the defendant, we make a judgment after we get all that information on the type of bail we decide to give to the defendant. If there are a repeated offender, if they have not done their bail, they've ran away, then we could issue a high monetary bail. That way they're more willing to pay. Bail is not a punishment. It is to make sure that the defendant complies and appears to all court hearings. We shouldn't use it as a punishment. That is not right. We're not supposed to send people to jail for being poor or having limited resources. So it's our job to get the information from them, work with that, and then make an intelligent decision on how we go about the case.
What do you think is the most important problem in your district that will have to be handled by the district judge?
I think one of the ones we might see might be truancy. We've seen a lot of cases in Berks County when it comes to truancy. I personally feel that I think I might have spoke on it earlier, if a kid's 15 years or older, we should put more of an emphasis on them doing community service instead of giving monetary fines to the parents. Sometimes the grandparents might be taking care of the student or parents, and they might not be able to pay a certain amount of money. If they're 15 years or older, I want to give community service. They could go to church and help out. They could clean in parks. There's places like Make the Road that they could go and help out as well. And if they decide to keep missing school for truancy, we have the right to remove their driving privileges for a certain period. And if they're 15 and they haven't got their permit yet, we could prolong that time for them to get their permits.
Thank you. In Pennsylvania, judges run as a member of a political party. What is the significance of party affiliation for judgeships?
That's a little interesting. So when you run for a magisterial district judge, you could cross-file. So you could run for both parties. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. You could run for both parties just because a judge is supposed to be impartial. So we do not want to show that we are leaning towards one way or another. So I don't think that there's that much of significance when it comes to party. The people might think there is, but a judge is unbiased and impartial. That really, in my mind, should not matter whether they're Republican or Democrat when it comes to judge, at least.
Thank you. Now, all the district courts in Reading have to deal with zoning violations because the zoning violations are the same throughout the city. but the judges serve in separate districts. And we've heard sometimes that in one district it's treated a little differently than another. How can we assure that there are fair and uniform approaches across the city? And would you favor a central court in Reading for code violations to make sure they're all the same? And we'll do a minute and a half on this question.
Okay, thank you. I think having a central court would be helpful. There's a lot of violations when it comes to zoning and codes, I would know, that happens. It not only alleviates some of the cases when it comes to MDJ court, but if you have one judge that reigns over these, you might have a more consistent judge range when it comes to things. Being a judge, everything's at your own discretion, and the winning or losing party can always appeal. It is your right to appeal. You have 30 days to appeal. But when it comes to having a central, I think that would be a good idea. I would be pro for that. And I think it could only help. I don't think it's bad that MDJ see these courts, but it's case by case, and not everybody probably judges the same. Some might feel a certain type of way towards certain cases compared to others. Everybody's different, but we all have the same knowledge and feeling towards things. It's just sometimes the evidence might be proven a certain way to a judge that they might not see it that way.
What community problems can the district judge help alleviate? And we'll take again, we can have a minute and a half here, I think.
Okay, so I think that there's a problem with cleaning the streets. I'm very big on cleaning the area. I've been a part of a couple of programs where we clean the streets. Community service is something we could give instead of having to give for nonviolent crimes. Instead of having to give monetary bail or anything like that, or monetary fines, after finding out the information on the defendant, we could give community service for them to help out the community in such ways. I think it's very important to give back. And by doing, that's just one of a few things that we could do, but by helping out the community, whether it's cleaning, whether it's going to soup kitchens, giving community service is something that we can give the defendant, help them out, but at the same time, help the community. When it comes to truancy, same thing. You know, it's just about helping out and making sure that things get done in the right way. We don't want to overly put pressure on people, but we want to make sure they're accountable and help out.
And are you involved in community or volunteer work? And if so, we'd like to hear about it, and we have about 1 minute for that question.
Okay. Yes, I love helping out. I usually take my family with them. We recently did a few clean city activities. We did one on 7th and Bigham a couple weeks ago. We did another one on 4th and Spruce with South of Penn, great organization that they have. And I always take my family because it's important for me to teach my daughter that you have to give back to community. It's not about playing games or getting something cash in return for helping out. It should come from the heart. We did an event with a radio station, La Mega, in the Reading Fighting Philly Stadium. And we gave out 2,000 boxes of food to the cars that came by, just to help out the community. It's times like this, we all need help. And if we can, it's good to help out.
Thank you. We'll take about 45 seconds for the next question because we're getting close to our time here. As a
Sure.
member of the judiciary, what can you do, either on the bench or off the bench, to ensure that all Pennsylvanians have access to justice?
Yeah, I could assure them that when someone's presented in front of me, the case will be heard to its fullest, and no judgments will be made prior. You could feel confident knowing that while you're sitting down before you come in front of a judge, that nothing will be decided prior. It is up to the defendant and the plaintiff to prove the case. And that hopefully would make anybody presenting in front of me feel comfortable enough to feel that whatever is decided was to the best of the knowledge of the judge in front of them, and they should feel confident with that.
Then we're ready for your closing statement. We have 1 minute left.
Thank you. Yeah, so once again, my name is Peter Rosario. I'm running for the May 18th elections for Magisterial District Judge. I have been certified 3 times in the past 6 years to be judge. I am working to try to be a fair judge and impartial judge. It's not about, I'm about the community. It's not about, giving breaks, but it's about giving chances when you can. I think it's important that we as judges start thinking about the people in a way that if there's different ways to go about the judgment, we should do it. It's our power, it's our discretion to do so. But if you commit a crime that deserves to go to jail, you will go to jail. Accountability. If it's about protecting the community. We work for you. It's our job to make sure that we keep the community safe. And May 18th, I hope that I represent you as your Democratic MDJ.
Thank you, Mr. Rosario. And we appreciate your talking with us about your philosophy for being a district judge and your qualifications. Viewers,
Thank you so
please
much.
remember the municipal primary is May 18th. You must be registered by May 3rd to vote, and you can check your registration status or request a mail-in ballot at votespa.com. And for information on other races, especially the statewide ones and the ballot questions, you go to vote411.org. And please continue to watch BCTV for more candidate interviews and information about those constitutional amendments that will be on your ballot. For the League of Women Voters, I'm Judith Cranis. Good day.
We make about 45 million pounds of chips in a quarter. That equates to about 200 million pounds of potatoes, which is quite a few. What's interesting with M&T is they're a small town bank, and as we've grown, they've also grown with us. They've got the resources that you would need in order to go big, but they also have that friendly local community feel so that it makes it seem easier than it probably is.